Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Hartford Whalers Throwback franchise mode here in NHL 22. So the save file actually did save this time. Hopefully that keeps intact for the rest of the series. But anyways, in last episode we started up the season simulation for the second time, and now we're actually in a playoff spot. But it's kind of like a pretty big battle to get into this playoff spot because we're only 3 points up on the Sabres and they have 2 games in hand on us. So they could technically pass us in the standings. The Sens are technically the team that we need to try and get to knock them out in a sense because they have one more game played than us and they have 2 less points. So they could be the team that's in danger of falling out of the playoffs. And then also, if we go over to the Metropolitan Division, you could kind of see that the Florida Panthers are in a wild card spot with 65 points as well. But the Lightning are kind of far out of it. So the only team we really need to worry about is the Sabres, and then the Sens might as well. Hopefully the Sens kind of just fall out of it, or the Sabres just don't make it. One of the two of those options, just because I don't think the Lightning are going to make the playoffs, but they could go on a tear to last a little bit of the season because they've only played 60 games as well. So they could technically get up there and close to us in points. But anyways, like I was mentioning in the last episode, we simmed up to the trade deadline. As you can see, we are 31, 25, 5-1. So we are going to try and contend for a playoff spot because we aren't going to have a lot of time anyways to try and win a Stanley Cup in the series. So might as well try and make a playoff push in this episode. And hopefully we make the playoffs for the first time. And yeah, hopefully this team can do decently in the playoffs. So we are going to be making a couple trades probably as well, maybe at least one to help out our offense a bit. Because as you can see right now, our offense has not been that great. Jeff Sanderson's leading the way in points with 45 points through 62 games. And right now we're just one of the better defensive teams, I believe it was, in the league. Because if we go to the entire league standings, I think we are like 10th best in the NHL, but our offense has not been that good. Like, our offense is one of the worst in the league, and in our defense, though, you can see we are one of the best defensive teams. Our power play has not been that bad, and then our penalty kill has been pretty bad, wasn't it? I don't remember how bad our penalty kill was. But anyways, we're just not a very good very good offensive team. So we need to find somebody that could just bring in some offense and help this team get to that next level, and maybe we could be a good playoff team. Who knows? So the first few comments we got first comment we got is from HawksFan88. He says, I would go after Kevin Stevens at the deadline. He would definitely be a big help to your offense. Sylvain Turgeon would be a good backup option. So both those guys were on the trading block, and that's why HawksFan mentioned them. So Kevin Stevens, I think, would probably be the best option for sure. If for some reason we can't, then Sylvain Turgeon could definitely be a good backup option. But as you can see, he's signed for 2 years at $3 million. He does have a lot of trade value, but this guy would be technically one of our best players on our team. Good goal scorer, also could pick up some assists. Takes a bit more penalty minutes than you would like to have on a team in a sense, but he's only 31. Good offensive instincts, and that's pretty much what we need. He also does fit all forward lines, which is actually pretty great, and power play lines. So he's like kind of like the perfect option. But if for some reason we can't get him, then Germany has Sylvain Turgeon, who's a little bit lower overall, cheaper cap space, a little bit older of a player, but not as much goals, but still picks up a good amount of points. And he does actually maybe fit our top 6 forward lines, so this guy might be okay to have on a roster. But right now, I think definitely you are right. Kevin Stevens would be the best option for this team. And then the last and final comment is, not actually the last comment. The last full comment is from Saturn Otaku, who says, I'd take a shot at the playoffs to potentially be the cheese team. There's no guarantee that the tanking will even get you into prime draft lottery spot. I'd go for Stevens or Zamener if the price isn't too steep. So he's saying Zamener instead of Turgeon as a backup option. So if for some reason we can't get Turgeon, then go after Rob Zamener, who is younger, he's cheaper, probably around the same trade value, pretty much around the exact same point totals as well, it looks like, as Turgeon. So and he does actually guaranteed fit our first line. So him would probably, I would say probably would go Stevens. And if we can't go Stevens, we go Zamener. If we can't get Zamener, then we go Turgeon, just because Turgeon's a bit older. Zamener might fit in with the score a little bit more. He is signed for 2 years as well, so he'd be locked up. And also in terms of Saturn Otaku's comment, Cadillac agreed with what his comment was. So I thought I would just bring that up. So Anyways, let's get into this trade deadline. This is going to be very exciting just because we are also going to be keeping tabs on what type of trades the AI makes, just because I want to see what kind of blockbuster trades happen, because there hasn't been any trades throughout the season so far, but we'll see what happens in terms of the actual trade deadline itself. And then afterwards, we'll simulate the rest of the season, do a little bit of a season wrap up, and if we're in a playoff spot, we'll get primed up for the playoffs, which should be interesting. So let's get this last game against Russia done before the trade deadline, and then we'll see if we can make a trade for Kevin Stevens. Or should we actually already do that? Yeah, we might actually already do that before we get into the trade deadline, just because that way we don't run out of time. I don't think the find trade is going to find us a trade, though, for him, because it seems to be a little bit broken. But let's just see. Kevin Stevens. Actually, there's... Okay. Adam Burt, Curtis Lozician, and a third, so that sacrifices our defensive core. I'm okay with giving up one of those defenders, though, because Merrick Malik, you know? Or the other option is Glenn Wesley straight up with a fourth and a fifth. I don't like the idea of giving up Glenn Wesley, though. He's definitely our best defenseman. So I'm okay with probably this trade, but I would have to figure out something else to replace one of those defenders, because or else we'd run out of defensemen. Or we could take back a cheap defenseman from the LA Kings, so that way we actually have a defenseman that can be used as depth still, or a top 6 role. So yeah, I think that one would probably make the most sense. So let's go into edit trade and see if we could try and rework this a little bit. This might be a little bit of a long episode as well, just because we're getting a lot of trades done, or we'll trade done, and that type of thing. So who do I want to trade out of the two of these, Lozician or Burt? Lozician is 28. He hasn't been picking up a lot of points. Burt's 29. He's been minus 10 this season. So I think Adam Burt might be the best option to trade away. So let's get rid of Lozician. And so Burton a third. I don't want to add too much to this deal. We'd have to add more draft picks and stuff like that. They are interested in some of these random AHL guys, so we might be able to throw in a random AHL guy if we want to. But I don't think that's enough value to get this to go through. Yeah, let's just try this. Burt a third and this King dude. That's rejected, too far off on the value. Okay. We could try... Oh, no, they don't... They want J.S. Jaguar, but they don't want Legacy. I was thinking we could get rid of Legacy. I know it sounds weird because he's a good young kid, but he's 24, 76. And he actually has some value. I would like to keep Jaguar for sure, because Jaguar is definitely our future starter. But Legacy would be more of a backup option if he develops well. He has been really good down there in the minors so far. He's been getting the majority of the starts, it looks like, I think. And then Jaguar's been playing worse, but Jaguar's definitely the future starter of this team. So I know you guys are maybe going to kill me about this, but I think getting rid of Legacy in this trade will get this to go through. And then maybe we could change the third to a fourth. We'll see. We might have to do a third. But I think getting rid of Legacy, as much as it's painful, it actually does make sense. So I could see why Hartford did it in real life. So let's try a Burt, Legacy, and a fourth. And if the fourth doesn't work, we'll go back to the third, I think. But I think this will help us right now. So it's basically we're just getting rid of one of our defensemen. So we might need to look for another defenseman for cheap for like a random late pick or something. But this should go through, I think, hypothetically. Unless they just don't like Legacy because he's 1 year left in. Yeah, he's not as good, but let's see what happens. So, Burt, Legacy, and a fourth for Kevin Stevens. And that's rejected, okay. We'll go down to a third then. I'm okay with giving up our third round pick, I think. Just because this first draft class might be a little bit weak, who knows. Just because I didn't nullify the entire draft except for Joe Thornton and the prospects I made. So, and then there's some EA generated guys. So, let's do a third rounder. So, there's probably not going to be any huge steals around that spot. So, Burt, Legacy, and a third for Kevin Stevens. Still rejected. Are you kidding me? Can I throw in a fourth rounder? Wait, this is the third for next year. Third for next year has more value, I think. Or maybe not. I'm surprised that the thirds have low value. I'll throw in a fourth rounder as well. I know it seems weird to give up picks at this stage, but I'm not giving up our first rounder just because we're the Hartford Whalers. Who knows how we're going to look next season. So, Burt, Legacy, a third, and a fourth. Still rejected. I don't want to give up Jaguar in this deal. And giving up two defensemen, we'd have to get ourselves back a cheaper defenseman to replace them. Let's exit this for a second and go back to the trade finder again. Maybe we can do that trade that they're asking for at the beginning. And then we just have to find a replacement defenseman for Curtis Lazician. What about this Glenn Wesley one? I don't want to give up Wesley, though, because he's definitely one of our best defensemen. Yeah, he's 84 overall. He's really good. Yeah, I don't think I want to get rid of Glenn Wesley at all. So yeah, I think we will try the other deal. Then we'll do the other deal, and then we'll have to find a replacement for Curtis Lazician, basically. So that's okay with me, I think. Just upgrading our defensive core a little bit too at the deadline. So yeah, Bert Lazician and a 3rd round pick for Kevin Stevens. Let's do it. We need to upgrade that forward core, and that's what we'll do. So there we go. So it's going to call us up a random guy from the AHL, I believe. Yeah, I'll just call up Carson for now, meanwhile. And then we'll throw Kevin Stevens in where? We're going to have to scratch the Grim Reaper, I think. Yeah, we're going to have to scratch the Grim Reaper here. So Kevin Stevens, you're in. We'll move you up to... Where do we want to move you up to? Would you work on the top line? Yeah, you would. Okay. That's good. We'll move King over there. Emerson's not been anything fantastic, really, so we'll go with something like this, maybe. Yeah, we'll go with something like this. So Rice, Maderville, Ranheim on the 4th line, Caron, O'Neill, Emerson, Deneen, Primo, King, and then Sanderson, Castles, Stevens. And we also got Stevens power play time, which means we're going to take out... We'll take out... Let's see... Kevin Stevens could run the point. We'll take out Robert Cron, I think. Yeah, we'll take out Robert Cron, because I don't feel like Robert Cron necessarily needs to be on the power play. So we'll put Kevin Stevens on the point on the power play because he's more of a shooter. So we'll go with that. And there you go. That looks pretty good. And then we will also do... Yeah, maybe we'll take... What could we do? Maybe we'll leave the rest of this the same. I'll take Jeff O'Neill off the power play, though. I know I want to get Kevin Stevens as much ice time as possible, except for penalty kill-wise. That's good. Okay, and then let's go to our defensive core quickly and get in Kevin Haller for a second and Brett Carson for a second from the AHL team. That actually worked chemistry-wise. So, but we definitely need to find a replacement for Brett Carson. I mean, I could try playing Stu Grimson as defense, but I don't think that's going to work. Let's just go best lines down there in the minors. Okay, so that was our major trade. And now we'll actually get into the actual deadline itself. And we'll try and find ourselves a defenseman to upgrade that top 6 spot that we just lost with Curtis Lazician. But I think we had to make that trade because, like, even though it sacrifices our defense a bit, it does bring us that offensive player that we needed. So we just need to find a way to get a cheap defenseman that's like a 79, and hopefully we don't have to give up too much. So let's go in as a conservative buyer, and let's see what is out there for top 6 defensemen. So let's go... Let's look through this and see if there's a defenseman that's like a 79. Not an 83, but like somebody that's like a 79 that replaces Lazician pretty much. I don't have Robert Cron on the block, so I don't know why it's showing him like that, but whatever. Let's just go available. See if there's a top 6 defenseman that would be relatively cheap. Sean Chambers is an 82. I will look at the trades that happened after the trade deadline itself, so I won't read out all the ones that happened on the bottom just because, or else this episode might run too long. Bill Holder would be interesting, but he's got a lot of value. We need somebody with low value, if possible. Dave Ellett, no. Actually, let's just look through each individual team. So let's just go to the proposed trade screen, and we'll go to each individual team and see if there's anybody with low value that's a good overall on this, on all these teams. Let's see, defenseman. Let's sort by value and see if there's anybody that's like a 79 or something. 77 for Dean. Dean Chenoweth would definitely be the upgrade, but I don't think I really need Dean. Like, I don't know what I would take to get somebody like him. He would be an upgrade, though, for that 67. So he might be the best option, to be honest. As much as I don't think that's going to work well. I don't know. Chris O'Sullivan. 77 medium 7th at 22. I might try Chris O'Sullivan, to be honest. 12 points. Yeah, you know what? We'll try Chris O'Sullivan. I think I'm going to try Chris O'Sullivan. He's cheap. He's relatively okay overall. He's young, so he has the potential to jump up. So we'll try Chris O'Sullivan. But the thing is, what the heck do we give up? Maybe we should go to the trade finder and see what they would want for Chris O'Sullivan. Because he's not necessarily on the trading block, but he might honestly be the best option out there. And I don't need to find necessarily like a 79 or an 80. Like, our defensive core might take a bit of a hit because we are one of the best defensive teams, but might as well try this. So yeah, it's either him or Joel Bouchard would make the most sense, I think. So Chris O'Sullivan, no trades found. Are you kidding me? How about Joel Bouchard? Joel Bouchard, they would take a 6th and a 7th rounder. So I think I'm going to accept that trade. I know we have like a lot of picks that we've just moved out and done this and whatnot, but we're not sacrificing our 1st round picks or 2nd round picks. So I think this is a good move for our team. So a 6th and a 7th for Joel Bouchard. We're going to do this trade just to make sure we have a better defensive core. And now I think our team is set up and ready to go, if I'm not mistaken. I wish I could look at the edit line screen from this page, but I can't. But let's just go back to the proposed trade screen so we can kind of see what we got. So now our forward core, obviously we know, is set, but our defensive core, with the addition of Joel Bouchard, is looking still a little bit weak, but now at least, yeah, it's looking still okay, I guess. But we should probably, like, we could upgrade our top 4 spot, but we would have to give up probably a lot to get a top 4 defenseman. So might as well just try and be that cheese team with this defensive core and see what happens. Like, Joel Bouchard's not the huge upgrade of a defenseman, but maybe he'll do good here with our team. He was a minus 16 in Calgary. We'll see how he does with the Hartford Whalers, and then we'll just leave Carson in the NHL as a depth defenseman, I think. Just because maybe if there's injuries, forward-wise. Yeah, forward-wise, we're going to look a lot better, I think, with the addition of Kevin Stevens. I hope that he could bring that offense we need. So there's our only trades that we are going to make at this trade deadline. So let's exit out of this and see what trades the AI made at the deadline, and then we'll simulate the rest of the season, do a little season wrap-up. And yeah, hopefully we made the playoffs. And okay, well, there's one major trade alert. Brian Smolinski heads to Ottawa, so that's actually kind of cool since he actually played there in real life. As well as Nicholas Anderson goes there, and Doug Howda for a 1st round pick and a AHLer in Jonathan Aspero. Nice. Any other major trades? No other major trades, but let's take a look at what other trades happened around the league. Very curious to see if any people got traded back to teams that they played with eventually, like Smolinski. So Espen Knutson heads to St. Louis with some prospects in a 4th for just picks, basically. Mikko Makela and Sean Anderson go to Dallas for a 1st rounder and a 4th. Wow, that's a lot to give up for Dallas. I guess Mikko Makela is having a good season. Or Makela, I don't know how it's pronounced. Buffalo gets Kasatana from Russia with a AHLer and Cal O'Reilly in a 3rd for a 2nd rounder in a 3rd. So Kasatana off to Buffalo, upgrading their defensive core a bit. San Jose gets a 3rd rounder and Claude Lapointe from the Islanders for a 2nd rounder. Chicago gets Thomas Vokunin, a 2nd from Montreal, who gets Gary Suter in return. So Chicago is in a rebuilding stage, I think, at this point. So they're getting Thomas Vokunin, who's a good, solid young goalie prospect, obviously, and a 2nd rounder. And they're giving up a veteran to a team that should make the playoffs, probably at this point, in Gary Suter. So that's an interesting one. Germany gets Roman Turek, a 2nd and a 3rd for Sylvain Turgeon, Peter Inacek, and Peter Anderson, I think that is. So Dallas is loading up for the playoffs, and Germany's acquiring a good young goalie for the future, which is nice for them. They also get some young picks and stuff like that. So I like that trade for both teams. There's the Brian Smolinski one that we saw already. So that's interesting seeing Brian Smolinski go to Ottawa years early. Sweden acquires a 1st rounder, Ken Reggett, in a 3rd from Pittsburgh for Yuri Slegger, Magnus Arvidsson, and Jay Tavi. So I don't know why Sweden is like bringing in Ken Reggett. I guess they needed a goaltender, but they get a 1st rounder and a 3rd rounder since they're a bit of a rebuilding team. And Pittsburgh brings in Yuri Slegger, who I believe played there at one point, so that's kind of cool. And they also get Magnus Arvidsson in that deal. Philadelphia gets Bill Holder in a 3rd for a 1st rounder, a 6th rounder, and a prospect. So that's a pretty big overpayment for Bill Holder, but whatever. We traded for Joel Bouchard, obviously. Boston gets Sean Byrne, Mikhail Anderson from the Tampa Bay Lightning for some picks, and Dean Chenoweth, who changes teams. Detroit traded for Rob Zameter, so we wouldn't have been able to get Rob Zameter if we wanted to, unless we traded the day before the deadline. So Zameter heads to Detroit with Rudy Poshek for his second rounder and a second rounder. So that's not a lot to give up for Ford and a defenseman like Rudy Pochek could have been honestly an option for our top 6 pairing. Tampa gets a first and a second from Ottawa for John Cullen, Jeff Norton, and a fourth. So Tampa Bay is offloading a lot. Ottawa's stacking up their team for the playoffs. The Mighty Ducks get Alexander Barkov Sr., as well as Hannu Virta and a third rounder from Finland for a first rounder and a third. Washington gets Paul Eisebert from the Tampa Bay Lightning as well for a first and a second. And then there's our Kevin Stevens trade. So, yeah, it looks like Tampa Bay and some other teams are offloading a lot. And then teams like Ottawa are loading up for the playoffs. So, should be interesting to see how the seasons end. So, Ottawa's also one of those teams, like I said, that is kind of like in the same situation as us in the standings. So, we need, hopefully those new guys that they brought in don't really help out their team or something like that. Or hopefully the Sabres kind of fall off a bit. So, let's get the rest of the season simulated and see how Kevin Stevens does with the new team. And like I said, we will also take a look at who we're going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs if we actually get to the playoffs, because we do not know still at this stage if we're going to be a contending team the rest of the way, because we drop a first 2 of 3, which is not great. There's a couple wins against the Sens, which are huge definitely for the standings. Obviously, with them trailing us, there's another win over them. So at least we're beating them because they're close with us in the standings. I got to stop the simulation for a sec. We are in a wild card spot still with 79 points. Sens are way out of it now with 5 points back of us, so they fell off hard. The Sabres jumped up the third spot because we're kind of struggling as well. And we're 4 points up on the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. So realistically, if we manage to at least get a win down the stretch, or a couple wins down this last few games, we should clinch a playoff spot, I think. So let's take it a little bit slow. Game against Florida, OT loss, goddamn. Game against New Jersey, win. There we go. Nice 2-1 win. That might be close enough to clinch. No, it's not. 81 points. Team outside of the playoff spot, 77. Okay, we got 2 games left. Sweden and New Jersey again. Let's see what happens against Sweden. There's a 2-1 win. I think we've clinched a playoff spot. The AHL team already has their playoffs starting before the end of our regular season, which is a little bit weird. But yes, we have clinched a playoff spot. So there you go, 83 points, 81 games. Let's get this last game of the season done. But we are a playoff team in year 1, which is interesting. Who knows what could happen in this playoff run, and we lose our last game of the season as well. So 38, 35, 7-2 at the end of the year. Not a great record, but I mean, we've found our way into the playoffs. Now who knows what could happen. And damn, if we would have been in the Pacific Division, we would have been all the way like near the bottom of the standings. That Pacific Division is crazy. Holy. That is a war zone. Damn. Okay, let's take a look at the team stats and player stats for the season. Wrap up this year. Also take a look at the entire league just because I'm curious on who led the league in points and all that stuff. So let's go division by division for a second. So Pittsburgh won our division. Sweden finished in dead last. Central Division, the St. Louis Blues won it. Germany was in dead last. And then we go over to the Metro. The Rangers won that division. The Future Stars were the bottom. Not a surprise. And in the Pacific Division, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks were the top, and Russia was the bottom. In terms of the entire league, where did we finish in the standings? Probably like 15th, my guess, right? Because we didn't really have the greatest season, but we made the playoffs. We finished below the Calgary Flames, who we got Joel Bouchard from, but we made the playoffs, so we got kind of lucky there. So 16th best in the entire league. Goals for per game, we were one of the worst offensive teams in the league. Bottom 10. Goals against dropped off once we made those trades, so that's unfortunate, but kind of had to happen. I don't know if I put Joel Bouchard in the lineup. Did I put Joel Bouchard in the lineup now? Oh, no. I might have had Joel Bouchard scratched for the rest of the season, which would not have been great, but that's probably why our goals against kind of struggled a little bit in the second half. Power play was tragic, looks like to me. And penalty kill, how good was our penalty kill? Was our penalty kill good? I don't think so. Yeah, it looks like we really struggled in that second half of the season. Yeah, penalty kill was not that great, but it was still over 80%, so... Yeah, there's our road and home record. In our last 10 games, we have not been that well played. So let's take a look at our player stats for the season. Starting off with our centerman, Andrew Castles, 49 points, but a -10. Still a pretty good season from Castles. Decent season from Castles. Since he is up at the end of the year, I wouldn't mind still bringing him back because we don't have a max cap. We could sign him to whatever we want, but I do think we need to bring back Castles. Keith Primo, 43 points and a plus 11, 157 penalty minutes, so pretty solid season there for Keith. Definitely got to keep him around for this year, these next few years, I'd say. Manderville, 16 points on the fourth line is pretty decent as well, in a -5. Left wing wise, Derek King, 56 points in 82 games. That's pretty solid, plus 10. Yeah, really good season, I'd say, from Derek King. The only thing is his contract is up, so it's like, what do we replace him with if we lose him in the off season? Kevin Stevens, 54 points in 75 games. How much with us? Out of curiosity. Oh, wow. He really struggled with us. 8 points in 20 games and a -6. Like, when your shooting percentage drops from 17.9 to 5.1, that's not good, but hopefully he wakes up a bit in the playoffs. Like, maybe we need to find a better line for him. Maybe we need to put him on the second line instead, because he's playing on the right wing right now, so maybe second line's better for him. Jeff Sanderson was really good. Robert Cron, 43 points. Ranheim, 18 points. And Grimson had 4 and 62. Pretty solid. Right wing wise, Kevin Dineen had 51 points. Jeff O'Neill had 49. Emerson, 48. And Stephen Rice, 26, but a -16. And then defensively, Steve Chason, 45 points. Really good season from Steve Chason. Glenn Wesley had 22 points, plus 15. Kevin Haller was tragic defensively. Godinez, 9 points in 79 games, -4 only. And then Joel Bouchard didn't play with us, right? Yeah, we didn't play Joel Bouchard, so I made a mistake and didn't put Joel Bouchard into the lineup just because I forgot about Brett Carson being there. But Brett Carson played there, and he was -9, so we got to take him out for the playoffs. And yeah, Merrick Malik was not too bad defensively. Goalie-wise, Sean Burke was pretty solid still this season. 31, 26, and 1 with 3 shutouts and 916 save percentage in a 2.51. While Jason Mazzotti was 7-9 and 1 with 2 shutouts and 915 and a 2.49. So pretty good goaltending from both goalies. So there we go. Let's take a look at the entire league for points, just because I'm curious on this type of stuff. Okay, let's take a look at that. Sorry if there was a cut, just because I had the cough for some reason. So the best forward this year, by a good little margin, is Paul Carrillo with 102 points in 82 games. Solani right behind him with 97 points in 82 games. So those two are really good together, obviously, in real life as well. Wayne Gretzky up there, 96 points this season. Pat LaFontaine, 92. Brett Hull up there with 88. Not too bad in terms of who's up there in terms of points. Best goal scorer this season is also going to be Korea. Only 2 guys hit 40 goals this season, which is kind of a weird surprise, but wow, how the heck did Jamie Baker pick up 33 goals in Toronto? I have no idea how that happened, but whatever. For fun, let's take a look. Most game-winning goals, Saku Koivu. Most power play goals this season is Wayne Gretzky with 14. Most short-handed goals this year, Shane Corson with 4. Okay. Most hits this season for a forward, 229 from Travis Green. Damn. Yeah, Travis Green threw a lot of hits, apparently. Most block shots, Rob Niedermeyer with 49. Most giveaways, Pavel Datsyuk, which is weird. Most takeaways, Adam Oates with 152. So, Adam Oates, Mario Lemieux, and Wayne Gretzky, one of those 3 is going to win the Selke. I would say it's probably going to be Gretzky because of the face-off percentage, but I don't know. I'd say maybe, or it could be Oates because of the takeaways, who knows. Very interesting there. Alfredson was up there in takeaways as well, which is good. Kind of realistic. Let's go to defenseman. The best defenseman this season for points was Al McInnes with 90 points on the season. Jeez. What a season from Big Al. And then Brian Leach behind him with 82 points in 82 games. But yeah, it's Al McInnes that's definitely going to win the Norris with 90 points and a plus 47. That's a really good year for him. And then Zubov was up there with 72 points. Chris Pronger, Paul Coffey. The type of guys you'd expect to be up there in points. A little bit of a weird season for Ray Bourque, only 54 points, so don't know why he only assimilated like that. Let's take a look at game-winning goals and stuff for defenders. Bruce Driver had the most game-winning goals for defenders with Olsen and Gary Galley. Weird. Power play goal-wise for defenseman, Paul Coffey had 7 power play goals. Shorthanded goals by a defender, Chris Chelios. Obviously, face-off stats. Most hits by a defender, Chris Chelios, Zdeno Chera, Chris Pronger. Not a surprise. Block shots, Alexander Kavanov. but Sammy Salo up there as well. Most giveaways by a defenseman, Bob Bugner. And most takeaways by a defenseman, Scott Stevens. And Ray Bork was also up there too. Not too bad. Most fights by a defenseman for fun, Marty McSorley with 37 fights. I didn't take actually a look at forward fights, so let's take a look at that quickly as well, because I am curious on that. And that's going to be Chris Gratton with 36, but Dale Hunter was also up there, Rick Tocchet, Joel Otto, that type of guy. Best goalie this season for wins is going to be Patrick Waugh, Grant Fear, and Mike Richter, all tied at 39. Most shutouts by a starter is going to be Mike Richter and Ed Belfour, both with 9. Best save percentage by a starting goalie is going to be probably Nikolai Hebby-Bulin, but that's an interesting one. A couple goalies of the 920 plus save percentage. Kolzig only played 56 games, so I don't know if he's in the Vezina talk, but if he is, he had a really great season. Hebby-Bulin had a really great season as well, but the losses add up, probably because of the team in front of him, though. Hasek was really good this season. Who else was up there? Ed Belfour was fantastic as well, but goals against is a little bit higher up than other goalies, so I don't know who's going to win the Vezina really at this point. Honestly, you could give it to Kolzig, even though he only played 56 games. To have a 931 and a 206 through that many games is fantastic. Any goalie goals? One goalie goal from Jim Carey. The net detective scored a goal. Wow, okay. 1 goal and 2 assists for Jim Carey. Who would have thought? Andy Moog also led in assists with 4, though. Damn. So there's that. And rookie stuff is broken because obviously not all these guys are rookies. But there is that. Now let's take a look at who we are playing in the first round of the playoffs. And then that'll be it for this episode because we're already around 30 minutes, I think, in this episode. Don't want to make it too long for you guys. But who are we playing in the first round? It's going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we're going to have to take on Mario Lemieux and Yager and all those guys. So this is going to be a very tough task. I don't think we have even a chance really to win against them. But if we could be the team that upsets them, that would be pretty funny. They went 49-29, 3-1 on the season. And they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. So we got to be the cheese team in order to beat this Penguins team more than likely. So because I don't know if they made any upgrades at the deadline. But I do know obviously they have Lemieux. They have Yager. I'm not sure who else exactly, but let's take a look at the roster. Top line of Peter Nedved, Mary Lemieux, and Jaromir Jagr. Yeah, that's a nasty top line. Yikes. Nedved had 79 points, and then obviously we know Lemieux had a lot of points. Jagr had 81 points. Jeez. Second line, Joe Mullen, who's 40 years old at this point. Ron Francis and Ed Olchuk, so more of a veteran second line, but still a really good second line when you have a 90 overall centering that. At third line, oh yeah, they brought in Magnus Arvidsson from Sweden, who looks really good on that third line with Stu Barnes and Gary Volk. And a fourth line of Joe Dzidik, also Greg Johnson and Alex Hicks. So center depth is amazing. Bottom six is pretty solid as well, I'd say, for this point in time. But yeah, it's a very good forward core. Defensively, they got Jason Woolley and Kevin Hatcher, who's really good offensively. Frederick Olsen and Yuri Slegger, who they brought in from Sweden as well. And yeah, he's looking pretty solid. And then they also have Darius Kasparaitis and Craig Muni. So that's a really good defensive core as well. A lot of physical players that could also pick up points because Woolley was good offensively, I think, to an extent. Hatcher definitely was. Olsen was as well. Slegger, I think, had some good seasons. And then Kasparaitis was more of a physical player. Same with Craig Muni, more of a DFD. Goalie-wise, they do have Tom Barrasso and Patrick Lalime as the backup because they did decide to trade away Ken Reggett. How did these guys do? Patrick Lalime was fantastic as a backup. Only lost one game with a 922. Goddamn. And then Tom Barrasso was pretty solid as well. Not the best stats, but he's really good too. So there's that. Depth-wise, they just have they have one AHLer, and then they also have Dave Roach and Francois Leroux. So two bigger physical kind of players, 6'4" and 6'6". Goddamn. So that is the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I don't know if we're going to be able to beat this team. But if we do manage to beat this team, maybe we can beat anything else in our path. But at least this team is going to get some experience in year one right away. And the last thing to do before we end this episode, we'll show you guys the playoff tree, is see what it's like in terms of the entire league. So we got Dallas and Detroit in the West, as well as St. Louis, Edmonton, Colorado, Vancouver, and Anaheim, Phoenix. And then in the East, you got Philadelphia, Washington, Rangers, Florida, Montreal, and Buffalo, and then us in Pittsburgh. So should be an interesting one to see who wins the Stanley Cup in year one. Obviously, Detroit and Philadelphia would be the teams that go to the finals this year. So should be interesting to see how far those teams actually get. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Hartford Whalers franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to first round against the Pittsburgh Penguins as we look to see if this team could actually pull off an upset and get to the second round. So guys, think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.